Peace be upon you, and welcome to a new episode. On October 13th, 1998, a report reached the police at Alaguza Police Station about a foul odor coming from an apartment in Al Mohandasin. That day, a patrol team went to the apartment. They found the door locked, so they broke it open and went inside. The smell was strong and led them to the bedroom. There, they found the body of a man in his 50s, naked, tied up with electrical wires by his hands and feet, and his head was severed from his body, lying on the floor. The corpse showed signs of electric shocks, blows to the head, and stab wounds to the neck. The team leader immediately called for support from the Criminal Investigation Department. The apartment was large, with 4 bedrooms and a spacious reception area, well furnished but filled with traces of drugs everywhere. The door showed no signs of forced entry, indicating that the killer was someone the victim knew. The officer ordered the place to be sealed off, and the body to be transferred to the forensic department immediately. At the same time, the forensics team began collecting fingerprints from every surface, doors, beds, and furniture, and found multiple prints, 2 of which belonged to 2 main suspects. The initial investigation revealed that the victim had been tortured for a long time before death, and the apartment contained 20 hidden VHS tapes filled with illegal content. Who was this victim, and what could have made someone do this to him? Before we begin our story, don't forget to like and share this episode so it reaches as many people as possible. And stay tuned. I'll be with you every Saturday, Monday, and Wednesday with a new episode. Without further delay, let's dive deep into the heart of our story. Our story begins with Hamdi Abdel Al, a lawyer in his 50s who owned a legal consultancy office in downtown Cairo, near Tahrir Square. The office was always empty, with no clients. It was merely a front for criminal activities. Hamdi had previously worked for a security agency but was dismissed in 1992 due to misconduct and a bad reputation. He always claimed that he had resigned. In 1993, after being dismissed, Hamdi started building his small network, gathering information on businessmen in downtown Cairo, inviting them to meetings, and gradually beginning to blackmail them. In 1994, he sold his first apartment using a fake sales contract, a property in Mbaba, for 3,000 Egyptian pounds and used the money to furnish another apartment. By 1995, he had bought the apartment in Al Mohandasin, a spacious one with 4 bedrooms and a large reception area furnished with luxurious furniture. This apartment became the headquarters of his network: prostitution, drugs, blackmail, and thefts. In 1996, Hamdi secretly married his first wife Fatima Ahmed, a widow from Mbaba, by force. He stole 10,000 pounds, her land, her gold, and even kidnapped her 2 children, Ahmed and Ali, registering them under his own name. In 1997, he added another secret wife, from whom he stole her late husband's inheritance and began collecting children to exploit their inherited properties. By the summer of 1998, Hamdi was obtaining drugs weekly from a pharmacist in Kit Kat Square, Mbaba, pills he mixed into shisha or tea for his private parties. In July 1998, he hosted a weekly party inviting 3 businessmen from downtown Cairo. After they took the drugged drinks, he filmed them, photos and videos of deviant acts while they were unconscious, and later blackmailed each of them for 2,000 pounds. The apartment was filled with drug paraphernalia and had a special room for private parties, where victims were forced to participate. Hamdi would invite businessmen and minor officials every Friday, offering them drug-laced shisha and women from a prostitution ring in Mbaba. Then he would secretly record videos of them engaging in immoral acts and blackmail them for months. He was sexually deviant himself, forcing his victims to participate and threatening to imprison them on false charges. In addition to that, he stole land and gold from widows, kidnapped children to register them as his own, and forged contracts for selling cars and apartments under fake names. In July 1998, he stole a piece of land from a widow in Imbaba using a forged contract and sold it to a businessman in downtown Cairo for £5,000. In August 1998, he added another victim, a businessman from Shubra El Khaimah, whom he blackmailed using a video, demanding £1,500 per month. In August 1998, 2 months before the murder, there was a man named Taher Ahmed Abu Almaty, 38 years old, unemployed, married to Amal Abdel Maqsood, 29, a housewife. They had 2 sons, Ahmed, 4 years old, and Mohammed, 1.5. They were going through severe financial hardship, moving between relatives' homes in Imbaba every couple of weeks. Taher searched for work daily in Imbaba's factories or downtown Cairo's shops, but with no success. He came home empty-handed every night. On August 20, 1998, his father suggested he visit Hamdi Abdel Al, who was a relative, saying, "He's got connections in the security services. He can help you." On August 21st, Taher discussed the idea with Amal, and she said, "Try, Taher. We have no other option." On August 22nd, Taher went to Hamdi Abdel Al's office in downtown Cairo, explained his situation and said, "I've been unemployed for months. I need any job to provide for my wife and kids." Hamdi promised to give him work, handed him the keys to the apartment in Al Mohandesin, and told him to move in with his family the next day. On August 23rd, Taher packed their few belongings, moved with Amal and their children into the apartment, arranged their things in a small room, and, for the first time, they slept in a place they could call their own. On August 24th, Hamdi Abdel Al went to the apartment, asked how they were doing, and said, "You'll start work tomorrow, but first help me clean the office." Taher helped move boxes from downtown Cairo to Al Mohandesin that contained forged papers and contracts. On August 25th, Hamdi Abdel Al returned early and offered Amal tea laced with a drug. They drank together in the reception. He began talking about his weekly parties and offered Taher a job helping at the parties for £200 a week, saying, "You'll help with the arrangements and you'll earn well." He forced him to watch a video of deviant acts and threatened him with prison if he refused, saying, "If you don't like it, I'll say you stole from me, and Amal will be arrested on prostitution charges." On August 26th, Taher began helping prepare the shisha for the party, and Amal cleaned the rooms. On August 27th, Hamdi Abdel Al stole Taher and Amal's ID cards without them noticing. On August 28th, he told them he had taken their identity cards and that he would use them for legal work, and he gave them £50 as their first pay. On August 29th, Taher discussed their worries with Amal, and she said, "Let's endure this for the children." On August 30th, Hamdi forced Taher to buy drugs from a pharmacist in Kit Kat Square in Imbaba using his ID card, and to sell them at one of the weekly parties, earning £100. Amal was forced to prepare the shisha and serve guests involved in the prostitution. On September 1st, the first full party was held. Taher watched the guests and Amal helped serve. Afterwards, Hamdi threatened Taher, saying, "You're now my partner." Then Hamdi forced Amal to take part in a party with guests, filmed her in sexually inappropriate positions, and said, "This is your guarantee of loyalty." Taher and Amal began to fear what was happening. At first, they had been happy about the extra money, but now it had become dangerous. Amal said, "We have to run away soon." On September 10th, Hamdi Abdel Al added a small fraud. He used Tahir's ID to sell a stolen used car in Imbaba. After that, Hamdi forced Tahir to perform a deviant act with him in the bedroom and filmed a 10-minute video, and from then on he constantly blackmailed them with the threat of exposure, saying, "I've got you. You won't be able to escape." Tahir and Amal seriously considered fleeing, but they were terrified of the videos. On September 20th, Tahir helped at another party, and so did Amal. On September 25th, Hamdi threatened to send the video if they did not continue, because they had started to object and complain. On September 28th, Tahir and Amal tried to escape to a relative's house in Imbaba. They gathered the children, Ahmed and Mohammed, and ran away. But Hamdi was able 2 days later, using his connections and influence, to track them down and force them to return by threatening them with prison and scandal, saying, "I know everything about you, and you won't get away from me." The routine returned again. Tahir went back to helping with the shady operations, whether selling properties or the illegal parties. On October 2nd, Hamdi told Amal that she would take part in a bigger party with 7 guests. On October 5th, 1998, Hamdi involved Tahir in a fraud using a forged ID in the name of Mohammed Salah el-Din, a teacher in Shubra el-Khaima, to sell a stolen car in Imbaba, earning £500. Amal witnessed the contract and told her husband, "This is the last time. We must do something. We can't live under constant threats and pressure." Tahir and Amal began planning to run away again, but they kept thinking about staying because of the large sums of money, even though they knew the risks were greater. On October 10th, they tried to escape again to their uncle's house, but Hamdi Abdel Al found them within 2 days, threatened them with the videos, and told Tahir, "I'll send them to your father in Imbaba." On October 12th, Hamdi Abdel Al brought 2 small boys and said they were his children. He ordered Tahir to take care of them. On October 13, Fatima Ahmed, a widow from Imbaba, came demanding her children, begging at the door. It turned out that Hamdi had married her by customary, urfi, marriage, by force in 1996, stole £10,000 from her, her land, her gold, and kidnapped her children to register them under his name and sell their inheritance. Fatima Ahmed told the details and said, "He took everything and took my children to steal the inheritance." Hamdi returned the children after she begged and after taking a very large sum of money, but then he asked Tahir to sign away Mohammed under an informal contract saying, "He will be my son and I will register him." Tahir refused, saying, "I will not give up my son," and he fled to Alaguza with his family. After that, Hamdi was able to find their location and offered them one last farewell party in exchange for returning the ID cards he had forcibly taken from them, saying, "Just come once, and that's it." On October 16, 1998, Tahir and Amal began planning to get rid of this plague that had destroyed their lives, Hamdi Abdel Al. Tahir said, "I can't watch my children suffer like we have. We must finish him." Amal asked, "What exactly is the plan?" At first, they proposed this idea. At the party, Amal would prepare the tea with 5 drug pills instead of 1, the dose they bought from the pharmacist in Imbaba, to put Hamdi completely to sleep for about 15 minutes. Second, they would tie him with a long electric wire, wrap it 3 times around his hands and feet, and shock him for a full 5 minutes with a plug, to avenge the psychological torture he had inflicted on them for months, and to suppress his screaming by beating him. Third, Amal would bring a wooden stick from the storeroom, and Tahir would strike his head 7 heavy blows, 1 for each month of exploitation. until he lost consciousness completely. Fourth, Taher would take a new knife they had bought specially, 20 centimeters long, double-edged, and stab the neck 3 deep times to cause a quick, silent death. Fifth, if much blood spilled, they would use bleach from the bathroom cabinet, wipe the floor with a mop, wash the clothes in the bathtub, and collect the blood in a bucket to throw down the drain. Sixth, Taher would fetch a cleaver from the kitchen and sever the head to hide the identity and create suspicion in the investigation. Seventh, they would plant fingerprints of the corpse's right hand on 3 ready sales contracts for the apartment in Al-Mohandesin and the 2 cars, Fiat and Renault, that Hamdi had prepared for his operations. Then they would steal the keys to the apartment and the cars, the ID cards, and any cash in the drawer, about £2,000. The next step was to take the children, Ahmed and Mohammed, and flee with them in the middle of the night. They would take a taxi to the bus station in Alaguza, wait for the bus to Marsa Metro, stay with a relative there for 2 weeks, and change their names temporarily. If they were caught, they would claim it was an accident and that they didn't know anything. Confession would be the last option. On October 18, 1998, at 9 p.m., Taher and Amal arrived at the apartment in Al-Mohandesin with their children. Hamdi had changed the door lock and said, "The farewell party will be the last one. You'll do everything one final time." He wanted it to be a party filled with drugs and all kinds of sexual deviance. Amal went to the kitchen, put 5 sedative tablets in the tea, and served it with a fake smile. Hamdi drank it, started talking about his memories, then lost consciousness within minutes and collapsed on the couch. Taher took an electric wire, tied Hamdi up, wrapping it 3 times around his hands and legs, plugged it into the socket, and electrocuted him for 5 minutes. Hamdi regained consciousness, screaming, confused, not understanding what was happening. Amal brought a wooden stick and handed it to Taher, who struck Hamdi on the head, knocking him completely unconscious. Then Taher stabbed his neck 3 times, blood gushed out, and he used a cleaver to decapitate him. They spent an hour cleaning with bleach, wiping the floor and washing their clothes. They pressed the dead man's fingerprints on 3 contracts, stole his keys, IDs, and 2,000 Egyptian pounds, took the children, and left at midnight. They took a taxi to Alaguza station, waited for a bus, and by October 19th, they had reached Marsa Metro, where they stayed with one of their relatives, living in constant fear every day. Soon, a foul smell began to spread from the apartment, and the neighbors alerted the police. On October 21st, the police arrived at the apartment in Al-Mohandesin, broke down the door, and discovered the body. The officer ordered the street to be partially closed. The forensic team arrived and lifted fingerprints from 50 surfaces. They found Taher's fingerprints on the wire and knife, and Amal's on the cup and mop. The apartment was filled with 20 VHS tapes of victims. The lab confirmed they contained blackmail material. On October 22nd, the forensic report confirmed that the victim had been electrocuted for 10 minutes, which caused burns, had been struck 7 times on the head, causing skull fractures, sexually assaulted an hour before death, and had a drug dose 5 times higher than normal. The main cause of death was the 3 stab wounds to the neck, and the time of death was estimated between 10 and 11 p.m. on October 18th. Investigations began immediately. On October 22nd, the police questioned neighbors in Al-Mohandesin, who said, Taher and Amal had been living in the apartment since August, and they disappeared on October 19th with their children Ahmed and Mohammed. They were quiet people, but that man, Hamdi Abdel Al, used to bring strange guests. The officer focused on the apartment and vehicles and ordered an inspection of Cairo's property records. On October 23rd, They found in the records that the apartment in Al-Mohandesin had been sold to a man in Imbaba for £15,000, and that two cars, a Fiat and a Renault, in Shubra El Khaimah, had been sold for £8,000 using an ID under the name Mohammed Salah El-Din, but the photo on the ID was Tahir's. Tracking the seller, they found contracts signed with Hamdi Abdel Al's fingerprints, and witnesses in Imbaba confirmed seeing Tahir. The Cairo police distributed the suspect's photos across all police stations in Egypt. On the morning of October 24th, Tahir and Amal were arrested in a house in Marsa Matruh. Police found £1,500, the apartment keys and car keys with them. On October 25th, they were transferred to the Alaguza prosecution office. The public prosecutor interrogated Tahir for 2 hours. Under intense psychological pressure, he said, "Confess, and your sentence will be reduced. Otherwise, you'll face execution." At that point, Tahir broke down and confessed in full detail: the blackmail, the videos, the thefts, the crime plan, and the execution. Amal later confessed as well, confirming everything, saying, "He destroyed us every single day." Investigations continued into November 1998. On November 1st, Fatima Ahmed was summoned. She testified about a 1996 theft, saying, "Hamdi stole everything from me and kidnapped my children." On November 2nd, they found 15 more victims, businessmen from downtown Cairo, who had been blackmailed with videos and testified in court. After examining the 20 VHS tapes, police confirmed the presence of sexual abuse and blackmail and discovered 10 additional victims, widows from Imbaba. When neighbors in Al-Mohandesin were questioned again, they confirmed the weekly parties. On November 5th, forensic experts reconfirmed the overdose of the same type of pills found in the apartment. On November 6th, they tracked down the pharmacist in Kit Kat Square, who was arrested and confessed that Hamdi bought large weekly quantities of those pills. On November 8th, more forged contracts, 15 in total, were found in Hamdi's downtown Cairo office. On November 9th, police gathered testimonies from 25 victims, each recounting their ordeal in detail. Finally, on November 10th, 1998, the Cairo Criminal Court sentenced Tahir and Amal to death by hanging based on the evidence, confessions, and witness statements. They appealed, but in January 1999, the Court of Cassation upheld the verdict after reviewing the investigations. In February 1999, execution procedures began, and in 2000, the sentence was carried out after several postponements due to appeals. This case is the story of a hidden world. It began with a favor on August 22, 1998, and ended with a murder on October 18th, following a carefully planned scheme carried out day by day. The investigation lasted for months and uncovered 40 victims. Hamdi Abdel Al was the main criminal, but Tahir and Amal took part out of greed and eventually resorted to violence to escape. The lesson is that crime only leads to greater crime, and justice ultimately rids society of them all. And with that, today's episode comes to an end. If this is your first time watching the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new episodes. See you in the next one. Goodbye.